Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. My name is Hannah and welcome to my January reading wrap up. We're going to talk about every single book I read in the month of January. Okay, if you are new to one of these, you'll know that first if you're new to one of these, you won't know. So if you're not new to one of these, you will know that the first thing I like to do is go through some stats. I pull most of these from the Storygraph, which is one of my favorite book tracking apps, and we'll just hit some numbers. I'll put some graphics up here so that you can follow along with what I am looking at. I read 13 books during the month of January, which is pretty low for me, but I have a couple of pretty chunky books in here, so we'll get into it. First up is my moods. I had a majority of emotional and dark reads with 6 books each, and then adventurous I had 5, tense and mysterious I had 3 each, reflective, hopeful and funny I had 2, and lighthearted I had 1 read. So I was reading a lot of dark, depressing books in January. Next up we've got pace. I had 8% fast and 92% medium. I very rarely have any slow paced reads in here. For page number I had 15% below 30 pages, 69%, the overwhelming majority between 300 and 499 pages, 15% as well, 500 or up. I had 8% nonfiction and 92% fiction. And for genres, overwhelmingly fantasy and romance, fantasy with 7, romance with 6. I had LGBTQIA+ and contemporary with 3 each, literary and historical with 2 each, and then dystopian, young adult, sports, religion, mystery, and memoir at 1 each. For formats, I read 4,744 pages total, 13.13 hours of audio. I had 8% digital reads, 15% audio reads, and 77% print reads. Something I've been doing with my print reads whenever I can recently has been to listen to the audio at the same time that I am physically reading the book, and I think that's really helped me get through books quickly and to really stop me from getting distracted while I'm reading. And so anytime I do that though, I do count the physical read because that's how I am taking in the information. I just like to use the audio to keep me on task. I'm very much a visual learner and not very much an auditory learner. 4-star ratings, I had 1 2-star, 1 3-star, 8 4 stars, and 3 5 stars. Pretty good reading month for me, and my 5 stars were, only one of them was a reread, so that's 2 new to me 5 stars. And then the next thing I tend to look at is this little graphic that you'll see that I make myself on my Notion page. I have one Notion page where I track every single book I read that month, and we've got my total TBR, which is now up to 767 books, and I unhauled 2 books. I read 1 arc. I read 12 books. 10 were off my shelf. 1 was a reread, and I acquired 20 books in the month of January, which seems terrible, but I think last January I acquired 40, so huge improvement. Let's get into my reads for the month. I'm gonna go in order of when I read them, not order of ratings. My first read of the year, which is crazy to say, was Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. I really love V.E. Schwab's writing. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is one of the books I credit with getting me back into reading as an adult, and so I have a very soft spot, I feel like, in my heart for V.E. Schwab. This one kind of missed the mark for me. I don't think it was a bad book, but I was not connected to the characters. I thought the plot was pretty meandery, and even though her writing is beautiful, this just took me forever to read, and for that reason I gave it a 3-star. And I will probably be unhauling this likely in my little free library, so I'm excited about that. This is the Fairy Loot edition. It's really quite beautiful. Look at that naked hardcover. But the thing is, I just don't need to keep books on my shelves that I have no intention of rereading. That'll be it for Bury Our Bones. Next up, I've got Our Infinite Fates by Laura Steven. I thought the premise of this one was so cool. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really liked our characters. Like I said, I liked the premise, but I do think this one ended on kind of a lackluster note. I wasn't super satisfied with the ending, and I thought the tension that we'd been working towards for this entire book just wasn't really resolved in a way that I felt satisfied by. So for standalone, I think it did a good job. Yeah, I didn't hate this one, but I do think because it had been on so many TBRs for me, I kind of built it up in my head to being a lot better than I feel like it was, but I still gave it 4 stars. I think it was interesting, fun, the writing was really good, and I would read anything that Laura Steven comes out with next based off of my experience with this one. Next up, we have Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This one has been on my shelf for forever. I feel like it's won a ton of awards. My husband loves the show that goes along with this one. I really enjoyed it. It's kind of a very speculative COVID-esque situation that wipes out, I think, 7/8 of the world's population. And so technology's ruined, the internet has disappeared, and you're following this Shakespearean drama troupe through this like post-apocalyptic landscape. It's very literary, it's very character driven. It does have plot elements that I enjoyed, but I think the main draw of this book is the writing. I think if you're not into sci-fi and you've been avoiding this one because of that you should stop, because it's not very sci-fi-ish, and it's really not very dystopian either. I feel like it's speculative. It's taking the idea of what if this was the way that the world was, and what would people's role look like inside of it. And all of the characters' stories interconnect in a really interesting way, and so it was interesting. I enjoyed reading it. I gave this one 5 stars. No, I gave this one 4 stars. Next up, we've got Things You Save in a Fire by Catherine Center. I think I ended up giving this one 4 stars, and I think it lands kind of in the middle of the pack on Catherine Center books for me. My 2 very favorites are Happiness for Beginners and The Rom-Commers. This one definitely didn't hit that level, but I did really enjoy it. This one is kind of a firefighter romance, and I thought the way that like feminism was handled in this one was pretty shallow, in the sense that our female main character was kind of experiencing some discrimination based on her gender, and rather than overcoming that, I feel like she solved that by acting as masculine as possible, and that's how she got ahead. And so I'm not sure what message that sends, but it wasn't my favorite. However, the rest of this book is really cool. I liked the characters a lot. I thought the premise was interesting, and there were a lot of elements, as there always are in a Catherine Center book, that kept me entertained. Next up, I read Ruinous Creatures by Jessie Cole Jackson. This is out, I believe, February 10th. I read it as an ARC, and I ended up giving it 2 stars. I did not like this one very much. I thought the world was so interesting, and I wanted so much more information about it, but it had insta-love, the characters were kind of flat, the plot was really boring, and I just wasn't interested for most of the time that I was reading it. But like I said, the world building was interesting, so I wanted more out of it, and was disappointed that I didn't feel like it delivered. Next up, we've got The Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon, Volume 1. I can't believe I have started my Emma M. Lyon journey. I feel like I've seen this series everywhere, and I'm excited to get into it. I only listened to the first one on audio, and like I've said before, audio is not my preferred way to take in information, and so I think probably moving forward I'll end up reading the Kindle Unlimited version while I listen to it, just to kind of enhance my experience with it. But I can see what the hype is about. I gave this one 4 stars, and I'm excited to continue. Next up, I've got Anxious People by Friedrich Backman. I feel like I've talked about this one a lot on my page. This is my first Friedrich Backman book, and I hear nothing but amazing things about him. I wanted to start with a non-series book, so I picked this one up. I think I spent a lot of it looking for meaning and purpose, and I feel like I wasn't necessarily connecting to what I was supposed to be connecting to in the story. And by the time I kind of realized like, oh, there's not any point to it. You're just supposed to be following these characters and falling in love with the human experience that they're having throughout the course of this book, developing really empathy for people that are very different from each other. And I feel like once I got that, then I started to like really like this book. So I ended up giving it 4 stars. The writing was absolutely beautiful, and I'm looking forward to reading more Friedrich Backman. Next up, I've got an oldie but a goodie. This is A Game of Thrones by George R. R. Martin. These are the new covers. I love them so much. This is like the perfect amount of flop for a paperback. I love A Game of Thrones. I have seen the entire show a couple of times. I've read these books. I've read the first 3 books before, but it's been a very, very long time. So I was excited to dive back into this with the Chris and Mads Page to Screen Club and watch the show as I went along with it. I gave this one 5 stars, and I'm very excited to keep reading. Next up was my favorite read of the month, coincidentally called The Favorites by Lane Fargo. I feel like this was a huge darling all over Book Talk, Bookstagram, BookTube last year. I am not really sure why I waited until this year to read it, but I think January really is the perfect time because it's all about ice dancing and really kind of the toxic relationship our 2 main characters have throughout the course of their lives. I really enjoyed this one. I think there's a lot to chew on, a lot to think about, and all the characters are very likable, but most of them are not making good decisions a majority of the time. That makes for a really interesting story, and I'm really glad that I read it. This is my first Lane Fargo book, and I'm excited to see more from her. One thing that I have seen a lot about this book is that it's mixed media. I don't agree with that. There's only chapter breaks where you're hearing from different people in kind of an interview format for a docuseries that's coming out. I think it's supposed to be 10 years after the fact of these 2 ice dancers, and I feel like when you say mixed media to me, I'm thinking you're talking letters, podcasts, newspaper clippings, all that. No, it's just a couple of little snippets from the docuseries in that like interview Daisy Jones and the Six format. And so if you're reading this thinking that it's like epistolary or like hugely based in mixed media, it's not. It's mostly prose, just like a normal book. That being said, I did really enjoy the docuseries snippets. That is The Favorites by Lane Fargo. Next up, I read Gifted and Talented by Olivia Blake. I have the FairyLoot version here and the Owl Crate version here. I actually physically read out of the FairyLoot version because, and I don't know why this is, but the Owl Crate version is so heavy. Like, just carrying it is a lot. But they're both very beautiful books. I'm not doing a good job of showing that. There's their edges. I think I probably will end up getting rid of one of these, but I haven't really decided yet. I like the back cover of this one because it has all of them holding ballet shoes. That's a phone and then an American flag. This one, I don't know if you can tell, but it's kind of their, oh, I held it upside down. It's their faces, which is super cool in like the concentric circles. I loved this one. I have heard from a lot of people that it's like Succession, but with magic. And I feel like anytime books get compared to Succession, I'm like, why are we trying to make a book be like Succession? Just let Succession be what it is. But this was literally like Succession. You've got 3 siblings that are basically trying to see if they're going to inherit their father's empire, which he just passed away and no one really knows what his will says. And so you're following all 3 of them along with a couple of other characters to see what the aftermath of their dad's death is. And the other characters are funny. The whole thing is so witty. And I feel like it's dark humor. Again, if you like Succession, that's the exact kind of humor that's in here. It's just really witty, quick, sharp, but you could miss it if you're not paying attention. So it's definitely one of those books that you want to pay good attention to. I read it and listened to it at the same time. I ended up giving it 4 stars because it felt like it was just a smidge too long. I love Olivia Blake's writing. I think she's fantastic. I like her stories. I just felt like we were kind of meandering a little bit in the middle there with nowhere to go. But I highly recommend this one. And I also really recommend Olivia Blake's One for My Enemy, which was another one of my favorites from her. Next up, I've got Enchantra by Kaylee Smith. This is the second in the Wicked Games. I think it's supposed to be a trilogy. And this one follows Genevieve as she enters kind of a deadly game a la Phantasma, but it's at an Italian manor called Enchantra. And I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was honestly probably better than Phantasma, but I feel like my reading taste has changed a lot since I read Phantasma. Even though I like this one better, I only gave it 4 stars because I don't feel like it's 5-star material, but I did give Phantasma 5 stars, even though I think I liked this one better. But also this one's fresher and I haven't read Phantasma since 2023. Maybe not though. It might have been 24. I think it was 24 because I'm trying to think about the house that I was living in at the time. I think it was 2024. Anyway, I like Genevieve a lot better than Ophelia as a character. I thought that even in Phantasma, and so getting to follow her was really fun. I think the manor was really interesting. We had a male main character who is kind of forced to compete in these deadly games with his siblings every single year because of a bargain that his dad made. I really liked our MMC, but I also really liked the side characters that are all of his siblings. And I think kind of the family affair of it all made it a really interesting, entertaining read. We are in the home stretch here, people. We got 2 books left. Next, I read Firebird by Juliet Cross. I have seen a lot of discourse about this one in bookish spaces. It's basically set in the Roman Empire, but there's a lot of Roman god influence, but there's also dragons. And I feel like the world building really worked for me. Like, I think we got enough information to make it make sense, but I do hope we get more in this world just because it's so interesting. This is the FairyLoot edition. I don't know if I said that, but look how pretty it is. Gorgeous. And I always read without the dust jackets on because I'm not sure how people don't do that, but the naked cover is really beautiful as well. So most of the discourse that I've seen about this one is because the FMC is a slave to the MMC. And while I do understand people being uncomfortable about that, I think with context and background, when you read this book, it's really not as jarring as you think. Technically, making her a slave is the only way the MMC can save our FMC from getting killed. And so I think better a slave than dead. And I didn't feel like there was any weird power dynamic going on during any of like the spicy scenes, which was important to me. I really enjoyed this one. I did think it was a little bit insta-lovey at times, which is why it's a 4-star and not a 5-star for me. And I feel like our FMC was making kind of back and forth wishy-washy decisions about like, do I love this guy or do I hate him? And while I think some of that is appropriate, it felt like it was going on a lot longer than it should given how she felt about it. That's the only reason it's not a 5-star. I did really enjoy it and I binged it all in about 4 hours. And for our last book of this wrap up, this is Love Does by Bob Goff. I've been reading a chapter of this every single morning with my Bible reading and devotionals. And so this took me, I think it does literally have 31 chapters in it, plus a foreword and an blog. I want to say this has been a really good read for me, and I feel like it gets you back to the basics about what the Bible actually says and how we can live knowing that, as opposed to what everyone else says it says, which is not really the same thing. So I gave this one 5 stars. I give most nonfiction 5 stars because I feel like I can't really rate it lower than that necessarily, especially when it's about God. Probably my own personal thing that I need to work on. I did really enjoy this one, and I recommend it if you are a Christian and you're looking for a book to throw into your nonfiction rotation. Thanks for hanging out with me this afternoon and talking about all of my January reads with me. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.